Islamic history is notoriously misunderstood and somewhat understudied in the Western world. For many people in the West, knowledge of Islam as a religion and broader Muslim civilizations extends only to recent political events in the 21st and 20th centuries. Many are simply ignorant of the significant and not so significant events and figures of Islamic history, let alone how these historical figures might tie into other famous events, characters, and schools of thought from before and way after the inception of Islam as a religion. In this video, we have decided to explore the iceberg of events, figures, and groups related to Islamic history, ranging from an inspection of the more commonly known and famous affairs, before diving deeper into the more outlandish and eerie oddities of Islamic history. Note that this video will try to stick as close as possible to Islamic history rather than theology, just to avoid unnecessary complications and the over-explanation of theological jargon. Fear not though, there'll be plenty of videos on theology and philosophy in the future. Also, the events and stories explored in this video are not necessarily indicative of our personal beliefs. We have designed this iceberg as an exposition of general Islamic history, so without further ado, let's begin. The Islamic Golden Age. Golden Ages refer to periods of history where civilizations truly reach their peak. It's becoming more and more well known amongst Western audiences that the Islamicate world underwent a golden age of its own that marked the historic apex of social, political, economic, and intellectual glory within the world at the time. Generally dated as beginning in the 8th century CE to the 13th, the Islamic Golden Age flourished as the result of intelligent scholars and philosophers taking seriously the Islamic divine commandment to observe God's natural creation rationally. The Golden Age gifted us advancements in theoretical sciences, such as philosophy and mathematics, which would eventually spark the Renaissance in Europe, as well as leaps forwards in the applied sciences of medicine and engineering, among others. Early flying machines, optical and surgical instruments, algebra, hospitals, and of course astrolabes, and more, came from the combined efforts of peoples from across disparate cultures under the sponsorship of the Islamic caliphs. The age was so ahead of its time that we even have reports of the first ever programmable musical robot being invented, an Islamic Golden Age Spotify. Due to foreign invasions and other social and economic factors, the Islamic Golden Age eventually faded away into the sands of time. Nevertheless, it remains as perhaps the most recognizable feature of the contribution of Islamicate civilization to the advancement of the human race on all fronts. Fall of Constantinople. A couple of centuries after the flourishing of the caliphates in the Islamic Golden Age, the Muslim world would leave another significant mark on history, once again shifting the paradigms of power, which left shockwaves that continue to be felt today. On the 29th of May, 1453 CE, a 21-year-old Ottoman Sultan, Mehmet the Conqueror, finished off the final remnants of the 1500-year-old Roman Empire after a month-long siege. The battle to take the city was a momentous undertaking. Constantinople had been a grand center of Western civilization for centuries. Explaining how coveted the city was, 23 armies before Mehmet had tried and failed to capture the Eastern Roman capital. But now, with the aid of revolutionary cannons, fiercely loyal Janissary forces, a freshly built fleet, and the aspiring speeches of a young general stirring up nostalgia in his senior soldiers, eager to leave a lasting legacy, the red apple would finally fall. Many historians regard the fall of Constantinople to mark the end of the medieval era, as Greek-speaking Christians fleeing the collapse of the Byzantine Empire would reintroduce classical Greek texts to Western Europe. In addition, the city's fall would mark a turning point in military history, as gunpowder was proven as an effective weapon against even the most impregnable forts and cities. The preceding 16th and 17th centuries would become known as the Age of the Gunpowder Empires, as various European and Asian empires would conquer large swaths of land using the proven Ottoman technique, Rashidun Caliphate. For decades, the two superpowers of the Persian Sassanid and Roman Byzantine empires had been locked into a seemingly eternal conflict for dominion over the Near East. The last thing they expected was for the tribes of Arabia to be united under one man, claiming to be a prophet of God, and for their centuries-long feud to come to an anticlimactic end at the hands of desert nomads. Seemingly overnight, Arabian infantrymen who had previously only fought in petty raids and skirmishes in an effort to survive, suddenly formed a solid front against the regional hegemons of the Romans and the Persians. After their swift and stunning breakthrough into the Levant, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad quickly established their governments in the land, controlling trade routes, administration, and civil and criminal law. Believed to be the closest companions of the Prophet by Sunni sources, the first four caliphs of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali were given the posthumous title of the Rashidun Caliphs, with the title Caliph itself meaning political successor to the Prophet Muhammad. The rule of these caliphs was generally characterized by enormous religious, social, political, and economic change, with some pre-Islamic customs being purged from the Arabian Peninsula, and a unique Islamic political and social system emerging. Nonetheless, despite the enormous wealth and power at their disposal, according to the Sunni tradition, the caliphs reportedly lived an ascetic lifestyle, choosing to live in houses of mud and on diets of bread, salt, and water. Additionally, the four caliphs focused greatly on protecting the rights of the poor, with some historians crediting the reign of Umar as establishing the first welfare state in history. Today, the Rashidun Caliphs continue to act as religious and political role models for many Muslims across the globe. Salahuddin. There are few names in the rich tradition of Islamic history that are as recognizable to Muslims and non-Muslims alike as that of Saladin or Salahuddin Ayyubi. The famed general would etch his name into the annals of history as not only a military genius but an icon of justice, fairness, and egalitarianism. He took a keen interest in the art of war from a young age, no doubt as an effect of having grown up in the age of the Crusades, the centuries-long battles between European Christians and Muslims over control of the Holy Land. After showing promise as a young general, often playing a key role in advising his superiors in battle, Salahuddin's attention would turn to liberating his religion's third holiest site, Jerusalem, making his way to the settlement after his famous victory at the Battle of Hattin. After a short siege and some negotiations, Jerusalem was conquered. The civilians were given some time to pay tribute to Saladin and his force, but against the advice of his treasurers, Saladin allowed those who could not pay the tribute to leave peacefully. Thus, Saladin became well respected amongst both his Muslim and Christian peers as a man of justice, chivalry, and mercy. When Saladin died, it is said that there remained only 1 piece of gold and 40 pieces of silver in his name, a result only of his generosity towards the poor and investments from his own pocket into consolidating his titular Ayyubid dynasty that continued his legacy.